Welcome to the Sportswoman Show. I'm your host, Gabby Hoffman. From gator hunting in the swamps of Florida to fly fishing in the cold water streams of the Mountain West, join us as we explore real human stories of women, from influencers to scientists to policymakers who are spending their lives in the outdoors. Let's begin. Ashley, it's good to have you on the Sportswoman Show. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it's so good to be here. I'm excited for this conversation.
What is your background and how did you get interested in the outdoors?
Oh, well, as a little girl, I went up fishing with my dad a lot. We were always out on the water. I love to go bass fishing. Specifically, I'm from Oklahoma, so a lot of bass fishing around here. And I always wanted to get into hunting, but I really didn't know how to. My dad wasn't that big of a hunter. We don't have a whole lot of hunting uh, people in our family, so I didn't really have the way to go about it. And I always wanted to, but I just didn't know how to. So it wasn't until I got a little bit older and around 2022, I met this girl named Hannah Anello, and we became best friends. We were roommates in college, and it's just so happened that her dad, Tim Anello, had a show on the Outdoor Channel, and they were based out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so through my connection with Hannah, I got to know Tim, and he kind of started showing me the ropes of hunting. And through that connection, he also kind of picked up on my creative side. So I've been a photographer, a videographer for quite a while now. And he has obviously a TV show, but he also has a production company here in Tulsa. So he kind of took me underneath his wing and started showing me the ropes of hunting, but also production, and then decided to take me on part-time for the show to kind of run their social media, kind of grow their digital presence, and then hired me full-time back in May of 23 to be a producer, to be the creative director, and from time to time to be a co-host on the show. So through that job, I have been on a lot of crazy adventures that I never thought I would ever go on. And I'm slowly but surely learning more about hunting, shooting, and it's just been a whirlwind. But that's kind of the laydown of how I've gotten into the outdoor industry.
You and I have similar outdoor early experiences because, like you, I learned how to fish with my dad. I'm a little older than you,
Yes.
probably by a little bit, maybe like a decade or so. I'm in my early 30s. But fishing
Okay.
was the first gateway to the outdoor industry and even outdoor activities for me. I grew up in Southern California, and my dad was a fisherman from Eastern Europe, is a fisherman. He's not deceased. He's still alive. But I'm saying he started it from an early age. He's still around, and we still fish to this day. But he thought that would be our way of bonding and, learning about nature. It was my exposure to the great outdoors, just starting from 8 years old, getting really firmly situated by the time I was 12. We had lots of fun adventures, still have some great adventures to this day. And I think people don't know that there are a lot of people who fish but don't hunt. It's not an anomaly. But we eventually make our way to shooting sports and then hunting eventually. We just take some time to get there. For me, it was within like 9-year increments. So when I got into fishing by the time I was 12 really seriously, then I picked up my first gun when shooting at 19. And then my first hunting experience was at 26. So I had like these 9-year increments of when I had these interesting outdoor milestones. So it happens sometimes later than never, but it seems like for you had it a lot sooner, which is amazing. And to work in the outdoor industry so young is really incredible. And I bet you've gone on some interesting adventures. But what have been some of your favorite episodes to have filmed so far on the program?
Ooh, I would definitely have to say, well, I'll answer that with two. I've got two answers. So, funny enough, my first hunt ever, I had never been on a whitetail hunt. I'd never done anything. And Tim when I had come on part-time, he said, "Hey, we're going to go on a cow hunt, a cow elk hunt in New Mexico. Do you want to come and just do some photography, maybe shoot some B-roll? You're not going to be the main camera person, but you can come tag along." And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. That would be awesome." So I went not really as the main camera person, but it was my first hunt ever. I didn't know what to expect. And when I tell people my first hunt was an elk hunt, their jaws drop a little bit. And truly, I had no idea what I was getting into. we get out there into the mountains, and I love it, but I also hate it at the same time. It was quite the challenge. I didn't really know the physical aspect of Western hunting, and to jump into it, that being my first hunt, that was a very memorable experience, especially for the show. And then fast forward quite a bit now. This past September, we went to British Columbia on a moose, elk, bear, wolf, and I think, yeah, those were the only species that we were hunting, but we had all those tags. So yeah, we went down to British Columbia in September. It was just beautiful, the scenery. It was a backcountry hunt, so it was my first hunt. Being in a tent in the middle of nowhere, just that side of things was incredible. And then I was also the main camera person. We were hunting out of a boat, so we were kind of just floating downstream in this area that we were in, hoping to see animals up on the bank. Just so happened that one morning, a beautiful 6x7 elk bull walked out, and we were able to harvest that animal. So that so far has been my favorite show, but I can't ever forget that first one because that was just kind of throwing me into the wolves, and that was just a great experience in itself as well. So
I haven't experienced an elk hunt yet, but that made me insanely jealous, even just to shadow it. But all my friends who go elk hunting love it. They say it's incredible and, I don't know, just kind of spellbinding when you're able to harvest such a majestic animal and then obviously use all the meat and not let it go to waste. And we have a elk hunt in Virginia now where we're going into our third elk hunt lottery season. And it's a really cool process. Lots of people apply. It's extremely impossible to get a tag because of just the draw and the interest here on the eastern United States. But elk hunting is very exciting. And I don't know if you saw the news recently. I think in Wyoming, they harvested the hunters there, I think combined with non-resident hunters too. I think they harvested like 29,000 elk. That seems like a lot of elk harvested in a state. But elk hunting is extremely popular. The meat is really good. And it's cool to have the taxidermy art too afterwards if you want to salvage that. But I want to kind of step back to Tulsa because Tulsa has been kind of in the news in the outdoor industry recently. It recently played host to rather the Bassmaster Classic. That looked like a lot of fun. I don't know. Did you get to go to the Bassmaster Classic in Tulsa?
yes.
Okay, tell me how that experience was because I haven't gone to Bassmaster yet.
Yeah, so I actually did not get to go to the Bassmaster Classic, the weigh-in or any of the events surrounding it. Tim did go. I had some plans this weekend, family plans, so I wasn't able to go. But it's funny that you bring that up because we actually, the production company that started our TV show actually started with Bassmaster Classic. So Bo Anello, who was Tim's dad, he's the one who founded the company, and we got our kickstart from partnering with Ray Scott, Bob Cobb, and all those fellows. And Bo was really kind of at the front lines of really pushing Bassmaster in a media aspect. So Tim being his son, when Tim got about my age, around 25, he also kind of got his career going out and helping his dad film the Bassmaster Classics. So this past weekend, having all those guys back here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, we actually were able to have Bob Cobb come in and sit down with us and talk about just some memories and kind of how the Bassmaster franchise really got built. And that was pretty cool. But no, I was not able to go to the weigh-in or anything like that. But it was pretty cool seeing the pictures, and Tim was able to kind of fill me in on stuff I missed out on.
Yeah, everyone I know who has gone to it, whether it's in Tulsa or I think last year was in Knoxville. I think next year it's going to be in Texas again. It looks like a lot of fun. It's like kind of has a trade show set up, but then you also have the fishing tournament component as well. And then you get the who's who of the outdoor industry. I've even seen politicians that I talk to on a regular basis. They go to Bassmaster to say hello and make their presence known and whatnot. But I bet Tulsa was buzzing with a lot of visitors. It was probably very good for the economy to have such a big event in Tulsa, right? Did you gather that there were a lot of people visiting from out of town?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could just feel the buzz in the air, and the excitement, and of course, seeing plenty of bass boats flying down the freeway as I was heading to work. It was pretty cool. Yeah, it was awesome for sure, and I'm glad that Tulsa was able to kind of host the event this year. I thought it was great.
I went to Tulsa last year for the first time for a outfit called the Professional Outdoor Media Association, where I serve on the board as secretary, and I'm an outdoor writer too, in one of my many different kinds of hats that I wear, in addition to podcasting, writing, policy work. And Tulsa to me was super interesting. It's a very outdoorsy town. I really loved visiting the Gathering Place, which is that big outdoor park. Like it was
Yeah.
so mesmerizing to me how walkable that was. And it was right near restaurants and shops. And you kind of felt like you're in this urban park where you're not really confined or really stuck around these like tall buildings. It felt like super breathable. I always saw signs for like fishing, maybe on the river, towards the river side, not in the actual gathering place. And then I also learned that trout fishing, certain access points where we were staying, I think close to Broken Arrow, there were even some access points to go trout fishing. I know within 3 hours further south of Tulsa, but I even had seen some entry points to go trout fishing, I think within an hour, hour and a half. And I know there's great bass fishing, smallmouth bass fishing in Tulsa. So what were some of the offerings and fish that you targeted when you were starting to do these activities in Tulsa?
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head. Tulsa's a really cool city because, you've got downtown if you like that lifestyle, but then within 30 minutes you can be out in the country. And that's one reason that I just absolutely love living here. Speaking on the trout fishing, yeah, we very recently I have a group of friends who really wanted to get into fly fishing. Of course, we don't live in Colorado or any of those places like that, but on the Illinois River, which is about, I'd say 45 minutes outside of Tulsa, they stock that river with trout. And so we every once in a while we'll go down there and practice our fly fishing skills, and it's pretty cool to step outside of that bass fishing and really step into the art that is fly fishing. And I've really enjoyed that over the past few years. We've gotten a few good sized trout out of the Illinois River, but I'm sure nothing compared to what you see in Colorado or Wyoming or any place like that.
I will tell you, having fished in Colorado, doing it doing it yourself type fishing without a guide, because guides were too expensive. And I think I went a little bit before season opened. I did not catch anything. And it's very hard. It's not like easy. It's definitely sought after, like Western fly fishing. We have a lot of Eastern fly fishing too. And it's, I think, comparable to what you could do in Oklahoma. So don't feel bad that it's not like Colorado-esque, because you can have just as equally as fun of an experience fly fishing. You're not dealing with as big a fish, but you still can have memorable fish too. But have you had any experiences so far in your young fly fishing journey that's really memorable? Is there anything extraordinary or unique that you've caught so far?
You know, I the reason I really wanted to get into fly fishing was because I kind of see it as almost like the archery form of fishing, right? So there's rifle hunting, and then there's archery hunting, and then there's, regular fishing, and then there's fly fishing. And I think fly fishing kind of brings you back to a little bit more uh, primal side of things. I don't know why I feel that way. But one thing that I can say has been very memorable for me fly fishing so far is I killed my first cow elk back in 2022 in New Mexico. And I took some of that fur from the elk and I tied my own fly fishing tie. And then I took that out to the Illinois River and I caught a rainbow trout off of that fly. So I thought that was pretty cool, kind of tying in the hunting aspect of things, the art of fly fishing and creating your own ties, and then to finally go out there with everything that I had done so far and harvest or, catch a fish from that fly that I had made from the elk that I had killed was pretty cool.
That's full circle. That's awesome.
Yes, yeah.
I haven't been able to do that yet with any of the things. I had a rooster pheasant and I should have kept the feathers to make some sort of pheasant tail pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have a particular favorite fly pattern outside of using maybe did you make elk caddis from your harvest?
Yes. Yes, I believe that's what it was. I'm not really too familiar on all the terms of all the different flies. I just kind of do what my friends are actually kind of the expert in the fly department. They just tell me what to do and I make it. So that's kind of how I was able to do it.
And when you were using this kind of elk caddis pattern for this rainbow trout fight, do you recall a fight with the trout, or was it kind of like an easy surrender from the trout to you, or did you remember putting up a fight because you had this very memorable fly pattern that you were using?
I remember a pretty good fight. I remember just stripping it. Yeah, I remember it hitting it pretty hard. And then I think that it was a kind of an initial fight, and then it kind of faded off. So it wasn't a very long fight, but I do remember kind of in the beginning it being like, oh, okay, it's fighting, it's trying to get away. And then afterwards, after a little bit, it kind of, I don't know if it just lost energy or what, but
Trout can kind of do that. You'd be surprised, actually, the bigger trout that you fight can surrender a little easier. It's funny to see the little ones put up a really strong fight sometimes. But of course,
really,
yes, sometimes, they're very feisty, they're hungry, and it's kind of fun to see them, chase after your fly, fight it. And then it also teaches you have to be better with sight fishing. Like I've been fly fishing now for maybe 7 years, give or take, coming up on 7 years more seriously. And for me, I still struggle with sight fishing because you could see it, you have contacts, you have your polarized glasses, and sometimes you don't see the trout take a bite of the
dude.
fly. And it's so infuriating to me because it's like, it lightly touched it. What the heck? I missed it. They're like, well, you missed a hit. If I'm ever fishing with some more experienced fly anglers, I'm like, I didn't even feel it. I didn't even see it. So at least you felt it and but that's gonna, hit and misses are
Yeah,
always gonna happen. But I like your comparison of how it's kind of like the archery of fishing because it is kind of primal. It is actually more elegant in my opinion. Not that it takes away from, spin or bait cast fishing, which is what I started with. And I still do it for certain species because, some of the bigger fish I've caught, I caught some red drum here in the lower Chesapeake Bay of Virginia. My fly rod would not have worked. It was few sizes undersized. I have a 7 weight rod, 6 weight rod. The fish I was
yeah,
catching would probably be like 10, 11, 12 weight. I don't have a 10 or 12 weight fly rod. And so for me, I'm like,
yeah,
okay, for these bigger fish to ensure that you catch them, like a red drum or a marlin, which I have not caught, but that's one of my dreams. And also tarpon. I've fought a tarpon, I've lost a tarpon, and I
oh,
want to chase after that again. Tarpon are great. You want to talk about a tug. That fish is crazy. Like and it's smart too because they will go to these pylons if you're fishing in South Florida or southwestern Florida rather. I was fishing near St. Petersburg on the southwestern coast. And this fish is smart. It will go to a pylon, wrap around, and then come off. It's just nuts how it is. But on the fly, I've heard that tarpon fish are so much fun to fight. And I want to experience that at some point. Even if it's like a tarpon under 40 inches, the smaller ones too, the juvenile ones, those are fun to chase after and fight just as much as the bigger ones are too. So it's, as you learn to do fly fishing, you're going to start to incorporate other styles or other fisheries. And it's a little different when you're doing it for saltwater because I started fly fishing on freshwater. I haven't really done it on brackish water. Like some of my rod has been a little transferable to not just trout streams, but I've if you fish in a pond that hasn't been pressurized. I was fishing in Pennsylvania. I was catching so many different species on my rod. It was incredible. And I was using woolly buggers, which are typically for trout. And
yeah,
I was catching with just throwing out this woolly bugger. I forget what color it was. It was black or green or kind of this darker green pattern. And I was hooking into like striper bass that were huge, catfish, carp, all these different species were just eating up this pattern because nobody had fished this pond when I was there for assignment for one of my video projects. So it's just so fun to watch that, um, that kind of fight with the fish. And it doesn't take away from the other fishing styles. I think people forget, well, oh, you're just going to do fly fishing. No, you could still do the bait spin cast, but now you have
mhm,
more tools in your arsenal. So it's a benefit and it takes years to perfect it. Like, even though I've done it for almost a decade, I'm still missing out on certain things. I don't do the hook set or the equivalent of the hook set as well sometimes because you just, like I said, you miss it because it's such a faint little bite. You don't
yeah,
know sometimes if they
absolutely.
bite it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's, one of the things that entices me the most about fishing and hunting is that you can always learn something new. I was an athlete in high school, not in college, but in high school. And, one of the things I loved about sports was I can always improve in one area. There's always a way that you can improve. And I think the same goes for hunting and fishing. Sure, there are some people out there that think they know it all, but I think the, best fishermen and best hunters are the ones that realize and recognize that they can always learn something new. And that's what I appreciate about this industry.
When you were coming up and doing fishing with your dad, was there any particular catch you remember witnessed with your father or having him alongside you that just is indelible and sticks in your mind to this day? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There was one morning, we went out on a boat. It was Father's Day. We were camping that weekend just in this little trailer park on Fort Gibson Lake, and we decided to go fishing that morning because it was Father's Day. And up until that point, I had not really caught a big fish yet, whether that was a catfish, a bass, or, whatever. I kind of caught the little sand bass or a perch here and there. I was pretty young. I think I was around 10 or 11 years old. But on this specific morning, we went out. He let me fish at the front of the boat, so I was running the trailer motor, just kind of having a good time together. And I decided to cast out to this point. I was using just a regular white crankbait, just reeling in, and all of a sudden, I just felt this massive hit. At first, I kind of thought it was a catfish, just because I never felt this type of fight before. And anyway, so I'm yelling at him, get the net, big fish. And he's looking at my pole, just eyes wide open. He has no idea what I have on it. Anyways, as the fish got closer to the boat and he netted it, it was about an 8-pound bass, which on Fort Gibson Lake is kind of unheard of. There's not a whole lot of big bass on Fort Gibson. And so for me to have that moment with my dad on Father's Day, my first big bass ever, was pretty special. And I think I'll always cherish that memory with him.
I had something similar with my dad, and those are always fun moments. We talk about lost fish all the time. There was something we hooked up into as well, and it was crazy. And I don't know to this day what it was. It was probably a big carp or catfish. And those moments are always so precious. And as you start to get older, you'll want to especially cherish the time, as dads get older, you get older and life comes at your way, you're going to remember fishing with your dad, or if you're a woman listening, you maybe fish with your mom, because everyone is different. But for the most part, I think most women right now, or as they've come up, largely fish with their fathers. But there's even interesting data coming out showing that more and more women are taking their kids fishing, which I think is really cool. I think it's cool to have both moms and dads do it, or even women leading, taking the lead, taking their kids fishing too. I want to talk more about, the production work that you do and what that entails, because I do a lot of filming too, and people should really get to know what's behind the scenes too. I think to become a better spokesperson, better influencer, better thought leader, whatnot, spending some time behind the camera and seeing the production side is extremely, extremely helpful. So when you're going into the field, you're filming these episodes, what is kind of the mindset you have?
Yeah, yeah. Not a whole lot of people, like you said, kind of understand what it takes to really produce the shows and content that we produce here for the show, or whether that's for clients or YouTube or whatnot. But when we go out into the field, our main priority is obviously to tell the story as authentically as we can. Whether it's a successful hunt or an unsuccessful hunt, we want to make sure that we're teaching someone something. And we don't ever want to come across as being expert hunters, or we know everything. We just want to come across as someone, kind of like an older brother or an uncle or dad, that can provide some little nuggets here and there that can make you a better hunter. So when we go out on hunts, like I said, we try and be as transparent and as authentic as possible. So we're really telling the camera and the audience everything that's going on, whether that's good or bad, whether we're seeing animals or we're not seeing animals, whether we're struggling with a tactic or maybe this tactic is working. So we always try and be honest in that aspect of things. And then also, like I said, just kind of giving pointers here and there so that people who are watching, they can learn something and hopefully take that out into the field in their own hunting experiences and become a better hunter.
Let's say someone is listening, a young woman, perhaps younger than you, is listening and wants to know how she can get into the outdoor industry, work in a capacity similar to you. What advice do you have to, let's say in this hypothetical situation, someone who is interested in learning how to get into the outdoor industry? What steps do you recommend they take?
A good question. I would say first and foremost, just recognize the skill set that you offer to the outdoor industry. For me, I started out, I was a wedding photographer. I was shooting weddings just so I could pay for college. And I just realized that I have this talent, but I don't think it's being used in the way that I think it could be used. I was happy doing weddings, but I knew I'd be happier doing something else, especially in the outdoor industry. So I would first recognize what talent that you can bring into the outdoor industry. And there's plenty of avenues that you can take to really kind of find your way within the outdoor industry. For me, it was just video production, photography, just a creative side of things. But there's just so many options. So first I would recognize, okay, what's your talent? And then two, I would just start making connections with people and um, really, try and find someone within the outdoor industry, if you're able to, who can kind of, network, help you network and find people that can kind of direct you in that path. For me, it was my relationship with Hannah and then her dad, Tim Anello. And then through Tim, I met Greg Ray and I met so many other people within the outdoor industry that really kind of helped me and are still helping me find a way within the industry. So I would say just, recognize your talent, what you can offer to the industry, and then just start networking and plugging in and making those relationships, because I think that's the most important thing within this industry is making relationships and working hard.
That's sage advice. Yes, who you network with, especially those good, solid connections, nothing that is transactional, because there are a lot of relationships, unfortunately, in the industry that do appear to be very transactional, but the meaningful ones where you make lifelong friends and even beyond that too, there's potential for that as well. That's so important for longevity and to survive really working in the outdoor industry, because it can be very cutthroat to be able to last long in it. But you seem to have a very good foundation. You're doing such exciting things. And I would like to know, and I think our listeners would like to know, if they want to learn more about what you're doing, the show you're working on, how they can get involved with your program or follow you or connect with you, where would you like to send them to?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, we air on the Outdoor Channel, Inside Outdoors TV. You can also find us on Instagram, Inside Outdoors TV _official. We also have a YouTube channel. We're starting to kind of put out a lot more content on there so that it's more of a free, kind of on-demand service for our audiences where they don't have to wait for it to be aired on the network. And, just for me personally, you can find me on Instagram at Ashley E. Poole. Yeah, that's where you can find us.
Wonderful. Ashley, it's been so much fun chatting with you. I love talking to fellow lady anglers. It always warms my heart to connect with more, especially those of us who first began fishing and worked our way up. So I wish you great success in your career, and I hope we get to meet sometime in person, maybe at one of these fishing trade shows like ICAST, if you go to ICAST like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I hope that the listeners really are encouraged to just jump into the outdoor industry, whether you're male or female. There's enough room for all of us.
Amen. Well said. Thank you again, Ashley.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Sportswoman Show. Your support is so crucial. Take a moment right now if you can and help us out by hitting the subscribe button on your podcatcher of choice, leaving a review, sharing with your friends, and engaging with us on social media. We also need guest ideas. If you have a suggestion on a strong outdoor woman we need to talk to, shoot our producer an email at cody@troutstreamstudios.com.